Well. It has been a minute since I made a video. I appreciate every single one of you who have tuned in after me not uploading since April. It is now August. Thank you all for still being here. Gotham Knights has officially gone gold today. I have some explaining to do about where I've been and what I'm going to be doing in the next 2 months, but that is not the purpose of this video. In this video, I want to give you my entire thoughts on Gotham Knights to celebrate the game going gold. I want to look at every single facet of the game, and I think it's fitting to do this because all the time, over the last 2 years, this game's been, had trailers and gameplay reveals since 2020. And in the comments, you'll always see, oh, this, looks great, but they'll have more time to fix it, or this doesn't look great, or whatever people might say, or this looks average, but they have time to fix it, and they're going to fix it, and it's going to get better, and hopefully they improve X, Y, Z. Well, the game has gone gold. So whatever you see is what we are getting, which makes it the perfect time to give you my complete thoughts on what we have seen thus far in every single facet of this game. I'm going to go through the good, the mediocre, and the bad of Gotham Knights. And one thing that I want to preface this video with is, for whatever reason, people tend to get triggered when I compare this game to Batman Arkham. Batman Arkham Knight, for instance, let's take. I literally don't understand this. I've never understood it. They are both Bat Family action RPG games. They all have the same characters. Keep in mind, Red Hood, Nightwing, Batgirl, all these characters are playable in Batman Arkham Knight. So the same characters are playable. It's a Bat Family third-person action open world RPG game. The amount of similarities between a game like Gotham Knights and Arkham Knight is so, the Venn diagram overlap is so large that the notion that we can't compare them to one another is asinine on its face. And I've never understood it. So throughout this video, I will be repeatedly and consistently comparing how this game stacks up to Arkham. There are areas where I think it looks stronger. There are areas where I think it looks weaker. And I'm going to go through every single one of those and give you my full, unfiltered truth and opinion. And, I've even though I haven't made videos in the last couple of months, again, I'll do a video explaining where I've been, what I've been up to, and my plans for the next 2 months leading up to the release on October 25th. But that's not the purpose of this video. What I do want to do, though, is give you everything that I have been looking at since April. I've been watching all the trailers. I've been watching all the commentary. I've been reading all the comments. I've been looking at everything, soaking it all in, and sit back, relax, and enjoy this. Going to be more of a podcast-style video. I actually have manual notes that I've written and printed out, 2 pages here. So the other thing that I thought, is that I'm going to go through, rather than just doing just the good and then the mediocre and then the bad and breaking it up that way, I'm going to do one of each. I'm going to go in order. So I've got listed here my good list, my mediocre, and the ugly. And I'm going to do one good, one mediocre, one ugly, and then rotate through in that way until we get to the very end. So again, if it triggers you to compare Gotham Knights to Batman Arkham, 1, I literally don't understand. That doesn't make any sense. And 2, it's my channel and I'm going to do it. So let's jump right in. And the first thing that I want to compliment that is probably the best promotional asset that I have seen for this game up to this point, and that is the IGN trailer on the Gotham Knights map. So this trailer opens up. I'm sure most of you have seen it. I'll recap it briefly in case you haven't. There's a narrator who's explaining the 5 boroughs of Gotham and the 5 founding families of Gotham, and it talks about the history and lore of Gotham spanning back to 1600 and why the city is crafted the way that it is, and it's really, really interesting. There is so much lore and rich history. It's obvious that so much time was put into the map design of this Gotham world. I mean, down to the architecture looking different in every area, each of the 5 boroughs having a distinct and unique sort of feel and dynamic to it. Obviously, as it pertains to Arkham City and Arkham Knight, Arkham City was a much smaller scale map. Arkham Knight only had 3 boroughs. This map looks substantially larger than the Gotham and Batman Arkham Knight. So in that way, I would say that the map, in my estimation from what I've seen up to this point, does seem to exceed anything that we have gotten. This looks like the best Gotham that we will be getting in any Batman video game or Bat Family or whatever DC video. You get what I'm saying. I can't call it a Batman game because remember, he's dead, totally dead, 100%, not alive. Wink, wink. Anyway, okay, so the map is a clear, in my view, a clear strong point for the game. Now I'm going to get into a gripe about the open world that is in the ugly category, the very ugly category, and I'm going to have a rant about that. But overall, the map looks fantastic. The architecture, the different sort of boroughs and life of the city looks really, really compelling. I think they did a fantastic job designing Gotham in this game. Okay, now let's hit a mediocre thing. This is a big one, a very big one, and we need to talk about this immediately. I think the gameplay falls under the mediocre category. Now, it is close. It is close to going under good because I don't think the gameplay looks bad. I don't think it looks terrible. I don't know that it looks great. It's one thing that's really interesting about the gameplay, and I have a number of things to say about this. One is it looks like at first the gameplay was emulating more of Avengers, Marvel's Avengers, and that game was a colossal failure, obviously. So I think that what happened after 2020, when that game flopped, they're like, oh shit, we have to change the gameplay slightly. And then what I noticed is, if you really look at it, the gameplay in this game is closer to Spider-Man PS4 than Batman Arkham. Which is really interesting, right? I mean, like all the way down to you can't block in the game. There's no block. There's just dodge. That is exactly like Spider-Man PS4, the exact opposite of Batman Arkham. That is one kind of, you might view it as a surface level distinction, but it actually is very significant. Like the fact that you can't dodge or you can't block and you can only dodge, that is exactly like Spider-Man PS4. Very, very interesting that they would go in that route. So I would say that overall, the gameplay looks good. I want to also talk about something. There's a bit of overlap between something that does fall into the good category, and that would be customization, which I'll get to later. But one thing that I really like about the gameplay that I would say is a strong suit is that each character plays very differently. And that would be a huge advantage that this game has over the Batman Arkham games. You know, one huge disappointment with the Batgirl DLC, the highly awaited Batgirl DLC, is that in 2015, is that the Batgirl was really just a stripped-down version of Batman, and she played very similar. She just kind of felt like a nerfed Batman. Like she had fewer gadgets and didn't really hit as hard. What I love about this game is that Batgirl plays completely differently than Red Hood, who's a ranged attacker who I guess you can kind of customize to be more of a brawler, but that's also something, again, customization I have in the good category. I'll get to that later. All in all, though, the gameplay I think looks solid, but it's closer to mediocre than good in my estimation. And the reason why is, again, I felt that it's not as good as Batman Arkham. And frankly, coming out 7 years later, there's not a great justification as to why that's the case. But with that being said, it looks fun. I look forward to playing. And I also really like that each character plays differently. And I really look forward to diving into, obviously, I think that my main will be Batgirl. Out of all the 4 characters that I've seen, she seems to be the most fun to play. Red Hood seems to be the most boring. Just being very range heavy and like just kind of seems like you're range spamming. It's almost like if you've seen my Injustice streams, like me playing Deathstroke or something like that, or Deadshot, you know, it kind of feels a little bit like that with Red Hood. But I do like that. Again, I guess kind of bringing in an Injustice comparison, I really like how each character plays very differently. Much like Injustice, you have your range characters, you have your sort of mid-level, mid-range characters, you have your brawlers. I quite like how each of these four knights play very differently, all the way down to the traversal, right? Like all of the characters, all the Bat family characters in the Batman Arkham games, free roam happened, rip, which it didn't, for all the characters. They would have free roam very similarly, like flying and that sort of thing, and grappling and skybombing and all the sort of stuff that Batman was doing. It would have been very similar. In this game, every character traverses completely differently. Their playstyles completely differently. Their heavy attacks are different than their base attacks. Super, super cool. I really like that about the game. But again, I really thought about putting the gameplay in the good category because overall it's solid. Ultimately, though, the reason why I put it in mediocre is because the gameplay does not look as good as superhero games that came out years prior. Spider-Man PS4 came out in 2018. The gameplay in that game looks better than this game. Batman Arkham Knight came out in 2015 on last-gen consoles, no less. Older technology, older game engines, and this game, the gameplay doesn't look as compelling as those older games, which is a bit of a disappointment, and that's why it goes in the mediocre category. Okay, let's jump into the ugly. I'm just gonna do it. Okay, I'm just gonna get into this. This is the most disappointing thing that I've seen from this game by far, and it is there's no civilians in the free roam. I mean, I was literally astounded when we see the initial trailer in 2020 with the Batgirl Mr. Freeze mission, the very first gameplay that they showed. There's all these cars, there's all these civilians and this and that. But then you look at the IGN trailers from the past month, and I've watched all of them. And in every single one, the city looks abandoned. There's no people. It's just empty. And again, in the Batman Arkham games, the biggest critique that we had, or one of the biggest critiques, is that there's no civilians in the map. Every single game, all 4 of them, they had some excuse as to why there's nobody else there and why it's just abandoned. And it's like, city, okay, we kind of get it. Like, it's just this prison. And then Arkham Knight, it's like Scarecrow's going to blow the place up. So, like, all 9 million people that live in Gotham got on, like, a school bus and then left. It's like, okay, that's kind of stupid. But I guess I get it. It's whatever. And then in this game, there's no excuse. It's literally just like, hey, the whole reason we want a day-night cycle. We want a day-night cycle so that the city would actually feel lived in, so that there wasn't some bullshit excuse as to why there were no civilians. And you look at the free roam gameplay from IGN. There are no civilians. I mean, there's like 2. It's like 2 people that are walking. There's like 1 car every 30 minutes that drives by. The city looks completely dead. And that is a huge, huge disappointment. Because again, comparing to Spider-Man PS4, 4 years prior. Excuse me, I don't know why I'm coughing so much. Look at the game 4 years prior. The city is so lively. I mean, there's civilians everywhere. There's traffic. It's New York City, for God's sake. I mean, there's millions and millions of people there. Same thing with Gotham. And you might say, oh, well, oh, yeah, it's Gotham. So it's like it's 3 a.m. Everybody's asleep. It's like, no, that's not a real excuse. I don't know if you ever lived in a big city. I lived in LA for many years. If you get on the 405, which is like the main freeway in LA at 3 a.m., it's going to be freaking packed. There's going to be freight trucks. I mean, there's going to be people commuting, traveling to go into, like, it's packed because there's fucking millions and millions of people. Even if 99% of people are asleep, there's still, that leaves tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people that are awake, out and about, like doing stuff, working the third shift. Like the map looks abandoned. It looks like 0 people live in Gotham. So disappointing. The whole reason that we wanted the day-night cycle is for a lively, lived-in Gotham City, an open-world experience. And you look at the IGN gameplay, once again, don't look at the 2020 trailer, because that's a CGI trailer. CGI trailers are notorious. There's this incredible channel, I think his name is called Crobcat. And he does these incredible side-by-side comparisons from E3 reveal trailers, like 2 years before the game comes out, and what the game actually looks like. All the time, these cinematic gameplay demos look extravagant and elaborate. Watch Dogs, very famously, it was the same thing, where the city looked like so lived in, so many civilians. The game comes out, there's like 4 NPCs walking around the city, right? Now, even that game had more NPCs than this game. Super, super disappointing that the city doesn't feel very lived in. Again, this might feel in conflict with what I said about the map, which I put in safely into the good category. But frankly, I don't think it contradicts at all. The map itself, the map design, the map structure, the 5 boroughs, like all of that stuff looks fantastic. The architecture, the way the lore of the city is built is really, really compelling. As it pertains to the city being completely lifeless and lacking civilians, really disappointing and undermines the entire reason that we wanted this game to not take place in one night. So really, really disappointing there. Let's go back to the good. I'm going to take a sip of water because for whatever reason, I'm so out of practice doing podcast commentaries that I'm like coughing endlessly. In the good category, one obvious strength is co-op. I'm really, really excited to see co-op gameplay and playing with friends. I can't wait to play with Jake and Salvo when the game comes out. This is obviously a huge advantage that this game has over the Batman Arkham franchise. Seems really fun to be able to jump in with friends and free roam, complete missions, and actually play this Gotham City together. That's obviously, once again, a huge advantage over Batman Arkham Knight. I always felt that it was a big mistake in the challenge maps, which already were AR challenges to begin with in 2015, and they had to make them challenge maps, and which they should have been from the beginning. I felt that with the dual play takedown mechanics, I understood why they would not do co-op in the actual story, like drop-in story like they're doing in this game. I did understand that in 2015. And however, I did feel that the co-op challenges and the challenge map should have had a component where you can invite a friend to play with. The fact that you can play this entire campaign and story with a friend, I mean, it's just really fun. Like, it's really fun for me as a YouTuber. I can do like a whole dual stream with Salvo. Like, we can jump on, do the whole stream together. do a let's play together. I can do a let's play with different people, and then like I can main a character. You know, one of my other YouTube friends can main a different character. Like really, really fun stuff. You can get, you know, meet up with your friends and link up and play. So I really, really like that component of this game. I think that's a huge strength of it. Certainly that will present design and gameplay challenges, and that will create some issues for the developers in terms of gameplay fluidity, that sort of thing. But all in all, the co-op safely falls into the good category and is safely a big advantage that this game has over any superhero video game in the last 10 years, aside from Marvel's Avengers, because that game just doesn't count. Let's go to a mediocre thing. I would say the voice acting. And I really hope I'm not offending. Many of the voice actors in the game do follow me, so like I don't mean to insult anyone. Admittedly, part of this is that you're being compared to Mark Hamill and Kevin Conroy. Again, as I said at the top of the video, if you think that's unfair, too bad. It's my channel, and I want to compare Batman Arkham Knight to this game. And frankly, the Batman Arkham Knight voice acting does seem to be stronger, a little bit more professional, a little higher quality voice acting. Again, Mark Hamill and Kevin Conroy are probably the best that have ever done it in terms of voice acting, just generally speaking, not just across video games. I mean, like animated movies and all of that stuff, animated television shows. I mean, they're so exceptional that they're hard to compete with, but I have seen a couple of cutscenes. Again, I've been watching all the content. A couple of cutscenes that I've seen between the one with Nightwing and Batgirl and the one with Red Hood and I believe it was Tim. I believe. I'm trying to remember exactly, but either way. I wasn't super thrilled. I was not super thrilled. There were a few, and it's always difficult to discern if it's the writing of the voice actors, but there were a few cringy lines, and again, maybe the lines were cringy, maybe the delivery was cringy, I don't know. But the voice acting, from what I have seen in the cutscenes, nothing has blown me away. Nothing has been like, this is incredible, this is the best voice acting in any superhero video game ever. And at some points, the voice acting, here's why I put it in the mediocre category, putting aside the comparisons to prior to Batman Arkham, is the voice acting in some cases took me out of the cutscene that I was watching. It made me like go into the comments and see if other people were talking about the voice acting, which they were in some videos. Again, I'm not saying it's terrible, and we've seen such short, small, tiny tidbits of these cutscenes. Primarily, we've seen open world gameplay. We've seen like they're marketing heavily around the gameplay for the game, which I think is actually a mistake. I think they should be marketing more around the Court of Owls and the cutscenes and narrative. But that's just me. If I were marketing the game, which I'm not, but the voice acting in multiple occasions of cutscenes I've watched has taken me out of the game, and that's why it belongs in the mediocre category. It's really that simple. Like, if the voice acting takes me out of the game where I'm like, oh, this is a voice actor, that delivery was a little weird or wasn't great or whatever, versus, like, when you're watching Mark Hamill and Kevin Conroy go out, I mean, you're just like, it's like I'm watching Batman and Joker have a chat. It's a totally different level. Again, might be an unfair comparison, but it must be said. Okay, let's go to a ugly thing about Gotham Knights, and that would be the character animations. Again, perhaps I am projecting a little bit on the voice actors, because maybe the real problem is the character animations. I watched the first 16 minutes of the game, and when all the four knights are gathered around in a circle, and they're chatting, it didn't look great. The lip movements looked off, looked out of sync. And I actually think the more that I'm thinking about it as I'm recording this video, I do wonder if I'm projecting critiques of the animations onto the voice actors. I think that's possible. But again, I don't see a great excuse as to why this game would have worse character, dialogue animations, face animations, character movement animations, etc., than games from 2015 or 2018 with Spider-Man PS4 or Batman Arkham Knight. you can probably, you can try to justify it as much as you want in the comments. I'm just not going to buy it. 7 years ago, games were coming out that looked better than this game. There's not a great way to explain that away to me that I'm gonna buy. I just don't think that makes sense. I think that the animations needed to be a little bit better in the game. Particularly, again, the problem is, and the reason that it goes in this category is that there have been instances where I'm watching a cutscene and the lip movements take me out of the scene. It minimizes, it eradicates my immersion into the story. And again, it's a little bit difficult for me to discern if it is the character animations in conversation or the voice actors, but those would not fall into the excellent category for me. Okay, let's go back to a positive note, something that I think looks incredible in this game, and that would be the customization. I absolutely love how each character can be designed differently to play differently. This was one of the strong suits, in my view, of Injustice 2, wherein each character could, in Injustice 1, each character more or less played the same. In Injustice 2, with the gear system, you could make a ranged attacker even more range heavy, or you could, with certain gear, make them a little bit more of a brawler. It looks like it's exactly the same way here. Ultimately, Red Hood is not going to be nearly as much of a brawler as a Batgirl or a Robin. But you can customize their gear such that two different Red Hoods will play completely differently. And I think that was demonstrated very well in the Red Hood versus Red Hood IGN gameplay demo that they showed. So I'm going to give them credit for that. That the customization looks incredible. All of the different skins and suit options that they have, the gear options. I know that one thing that they were pretty consistent on early on is that they didn't want to have generic skins. I think that will change as time goes on. You'll be able to buy like the new 52 Batgirl skin. I certainly hope so. I would like to see that as a new 52 Batgirl fan, but also I would like to see. I actually don't want to see the new 52 Nightwing suit because that sucks. But there are a couple of other suits. Chuck Dixon run. I'd love to see some early 2000s suits that we can purchase. Animated series suits obviously would be fantastic. I think that they'll let those come out later, but I think to start it actually is the right move to have their own in-gear system game gear system that doesn't rely or is not contingent upon external media properties, i.e. the animated series, etc. I also think it would be fantastic to release a DLC package where you can buy suits for the Batman Arkham franchise. So for instance, like Batgirl would be in the Batgirl suit from Batman Arkham Knight, Red Hood from the Red Hoods, etc., etc. You get what I'm saying. It'd obviously be cool to have an Arkham Knight suit for Red Hood. Like a couple of different things would be really cool for DLC down the line. But they're smart to say in the short run, like, oh, we're not going to do suits. Like, obviously, that's not true. As soon as, and maybe it won't even be W. Montreal's idea. Like, Warner Brothers is not going to let them just not make a fuck ton of money selling animated series suits. That's just going to happen. I can, save this video, clip it, live stream it in 6 months, and you can see that I'm right. But, I think it's a great, I really, really like the customization. I really like the idea that each character can be built differently to play in a different way. And again, going back to the comparisons between Batman Arkham Knight and Spider-Man PS4, this is a huge advantage that it has. Because with Spider-Man PS4 and Batman Arkham, yes, there are skill trees. Yes, there are. But it's not to the extent that each character will play dramatically differently based upon your skill tree. In other words, eventually you're going to max out the skill tree. And you'll have every single ability and every single superpower. Like in Spider-Man PS4, you're just like a god. Like in Miles Morales, you're literally just like 17 superheroes in one. You're like flying around, electrocuting people. You're like basically like Jesus mode. Okay, just like it's unreal. In this game, it's more like Injustice 2, where it's like, okay, if you get this gear piece, it helps in this area but reduces in this area. It's like, so you can really be like a brawler Red Hood, or you can be more range of a Red Hood. And again, there's still the baseline differences between these four characters and how they play, but I really, really like how you can take your Red Hood and say, oh, I'd like this, I'd like my Red Hood. I think he's too rangy. Let's say you think that. Like, let's say you think he's too much of a range attacker. You can customize him to be a bit more of a brawler, and customize him in that way such that you can even play with a friend, which they really demonstrated quite well in that IGN gameplay trailer. It actually... The two Red Hoods play very differently based upon their builds. So So just fantastic work. It looks like it's the best customization in any superhero video game ever. So fantastic work to WB Games Montreal for pulling that off. Again, this is not to say that the skill trees in the Spider-Man PS4 games or the Batman Arkham games are not good or better or worse or whatever, but it's more just that you don't have the ability to fundamentally change how the character plays in a substantial way. And in this game, you can totally make Red Hood play two completely different ways based upon your builds. And that's something that's unique to this game and makes the customization for this game better than any superhero video game we've seen. Okay, let's get into the mediocre again. This is a bit of a tough one because I'm speculating slightly, but I do want to put boss fights in the mediocre category. Now, you might say, Slick, how is it fair to put boss fights in this category when we've only seen the Mr. Freeze boss fight? Well, let me tell you why. One, the Mr. Freeze boss fight wasn't good. Again, comparing to Batman Arkham, a bold move to like show a Mr. Freeze boss fight after the 2011 boss fight with Mr. Freeze, which is the best boss fight in any superhero video game ever. So to show that in your 2020 reveal trailer, like, wow, okay, edgy move. Didn't work out for them. Obviously got panned in the comments because it looked a little bit too much like a Marvel's Avengers boss. And I'm a little concerned that the bosses are going to be like that in the game. A little bit more like they have these huge health meters and you just got to beat the shit out of it. Like, I'm a little concerned about the boss fights. Secondly, the fact that they've not shown any other boss fights is a concern to me, right? We haven't seen any trailers. We haven't seen any cutscenes. Like, have you noticed that all these gameplay trailers in the last month, it's all free roam stuff. There's no boss fights. In fact, they haven't even like shown any other adversaries in the game. Now, in their defense, hey, maybe they're keeping it close to the chest. They don't want to know, like they don't want to show away the best boss fights. Maybe the Talon boss fight at the end of the game is going to be the best goddamn boss fight in any superhero video game ever. So I'm speculating here slightly, but what I will say is the Mr. Freeze boss fight doesn't look great. And I've not seen any evidence to suggest that other boss fights in the game are going to be exemplary either, particularly given the challenges associated with creating a boss fight around a co-op partner. That makes it really challenging. I mean, just like think from a design perspective, if you were making the Mr. Freeze boss fight in Arkham City, let's go back to that, and there were 2 players instead of 1. Like, that immediately just nukes your entire design philosophy and makes that boss fight so much more difficult to design. So I think that the dynamics and mechanics of this game make it uniquely challenging to create high-quality boss fights. And that's not to say, like, Spider-Man PS4 didn't really have good boss fights either, in my opinion. And that was a single-player RPG game, so it's like a bit of a not an apt comparison in some ways. It kind of is in other ways, but I would put boss fights in this category. Okay, let's get to my last ugly thing. Most of the things that I have here fall into the good or mediocre category, so I only have one other ugly thing, and then we'll jump back and forth between a few good and mediocre things. And that would be, finally, no last gen. I think the reason that's ugly is for a couple of different reasons. One, it's very difficult to get these consoles. I still don't have a Series X or PS5. I do have the Series S because my GameStop just happened to have some in. Now, the Series S is easy to get for the most part. It's the $300 one. So my graphics aren't going to be like as good as, most of your guys is on the next gen, most of the people watching this video. But at least I got a console. Hey, I've been getting an Xbox Series X or PS5 is still borderline impossible due to the supply chain issues and due to the economy kind of being in the shitter. So, with that being said, and not on top of that, the thing is $500 goddamn dollars. That's not cheap, right? It's not like this thing, the console came out 2 years ago, and it's not like it's on sale. It's not like anyone's cutting the price $150 of oh, get your Series X for $350. Like, that's not happening yet. That's still 2 years away because of the scarcity and the supply, demand, and equities. And so many people are unable to get one. The demand is still so high such that it's difficult to get your hands on one, and they're still expensive. There's still a huge black market online where people are flipping these Series X's and PS5 $700-800. So the fact that you announced it for the last gen and then scrapped it is really disappointing. Secondly, and here's the bigger thing, I don't understand why the last-gen versions were scrapped. Nothing in the game from what I've seen in terms of the character animations, from the gameplay, from open world rendering, etc., would suggest that it can't run on PS4 or the Xbox One, for instance. Again, if this was like GTA 6 level graphics, like or whatever, like think about the most beautiful looking game you've ever seen. But again, the graphics in this game look worse than games that I've seen from 2015, 2016. Arkham Knight being one of them. The graphics don't look as good in this game as they did in that game. So why exactly would this game not be on PS4 when Batman Arkham Knight is? When Batman Arkham Knight is better graphics. A bit perplexing. Now, maybe it's the open world map rendering. Again, I'm not a fucking game designer. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just talking on my ass. Okay, I'm just a fan, and I just make YouTube videos. But it seems to me kind of weird, but whatever. Perhaps, of course, not perhaps. I am wrong. I'm totally misevaluating and misunderstanding why this game can't run on PS4 and Xbox One. I don't know what I'm talking about, but from it goes into the ugly category for this reason. You announced it, and then you scrapped it, and now I see so many people, like, people have personally reached out to me who are good fans, or longtime fans, friends of the channel, who have said, like, I don't have the money to buy a next-gen console. I was planning on getting this game on Xbox One. Like, people that are, not in good financial situations, that sort of thing. And now they can't play this game. But they were excited for it all along. You told them that it was going to be on last gen, and then you're just like, oh, just kidding. So that's ugly from a PR and marketing perspective. It has nothing to do with the game designers. The decision that they made, I'm not sure it's the right decision. It was the right decision. The last thing that we would want is a myriad of examples come to mind. A Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, right, where like one generation prior, where it came out on Xbox One and looked beautiful, and then on the 360, it's like the maps look like fucking Minecraft renders. Like, we don't want that. And that's why they scrapped it, probably. I'm sure the game looked like fucking Roblox, like Minecraft pixel, whatever. So again, I'm sure there was a good reason from a brand marketing PR perspective. That is definitely ugly. Definitely ugly. So just had to put that out there. Okay. Let's go through the last few things here. Again, that's the last of my ugly list. I have 1, 2 more good and 3 mediocre. Okay? So in terms of the good, I'm going to put the story. A couple of reasons for this. One, the Court of Owls look great. They look really, really cool. Not only that, Scott Snyder, the creator of the Court of Owls, 2011 New 52 run creator, he said that basically WB Games Montreal expanded upon the Court of Owls. So basically, if you're a fan of the New 52 run, you're a fan of the Court of Owls like I am, they actually took it a step further than what even is in the New 52. So most of the times when we're playing a video game, when we're watching a movie, when we're watching an animated show about a comic book, they're really sort of boiling and simplifying it down. Think about like the Harry Potter movies, for instance, right? Like, to get the real, full, meaty story, you got to read the comics, right? Or the actual book in the case of Harry Potter. And then the movies are kind of like a watered down, like sort of commercialized version of it for mass audiences. That generally tends to be the case with superhero movies as well, right? It's like kind of a very simplified version of the character's backstory and origin, etc. This is the exact opposite case, which excites me. I love it when this is the case. That this iteration of the Court of Owls is going to be more nuanced, more complex, and more rich than we got in the graphic novels from the original creator of the characters, which is just super exciting. And I tend to find that when creators do this, it actually works out better rather than trying to simplify something that somebody else has done and boil it down. Whenever they actually add on additional layers, think about the Joker film from a couple years ago. That would be an example of, like, they added on a number of layers that weren't there in the comics, which just made it interesting, which is not to say that it was better than what was in the comics, but it added a new nuance and that sort of thing. And it seems very apparent to me that this story is going to add a whole bunch to the Court of Owls that we haven't seen before, which I love. The other thing that's a good sign is that they haven't shared much about the story. Now, this might seem counterintuitive. It might seem that, well, I guess it sort of, in some sense, contradicts what I'm saying about the boss fights. But here's the difference between the boss fights and the story, is that if the story is garbage, you will show it and reveal it to everybody, because that's going to be the best way to get, like, think about any trailer for a bad movie that just shows the whole movie, right? When a movie is great, they're not going to show you shit. They're not going to let you see this plot of the movie. And that's the vibes that I'm getting from this marketing campaign. Is like, okay, we'll show you the gameplay, but we're not going to tell you about the Court of Owls. We're not going to tell, like, we're not going into that. We're not going to tell you about Talon. We're not going to tell you what's going on with Bruce Wayne. We're not going to tell you where Batman, like, they're not telling any of that stuff, and that's a good sign. That is a really good sign. That tells me that we might have something great here. Now, again, there were some limitations surrounding the voice acting, some of the character animations, and some of the things I discussed earlier. But with that being said, on the whole, I think the story is shaping up to be really, really cool and really interesting. So that safely belongs in the good category. Mediocre. The enemy types. The enemy types look pretty mediocre. It seems to not really reinvent the wheel in many ways. You've got your brutes with your big shields. You've got your really fast, like, low health but high speed enemies. It's just like nothing has really blown me away. And then sometimes I see like a in the Court of Owls, I'll see like one of the owls, but it'll be like 20 feet tall with a huge shield. And it's like, wait, what? Like, what is this? Just kind of weird. Again, I guess not that much different than Arkham Knight, which is very similar. But just not really any great improvements in this area. A couple of other, like, one other thing I've noticed is that sometimes the AI, they just, like, aren't even looking at you. They don't fight back sometimes. Multiple people have pointed this out on Twitter. I would agree with that critique. From what I've seen, that actually is a germane critique. There are many instances in which I've seen, even in the gameplay demos that they post publicly, like, the enemies just don't fight back. They take, like, forever to punch you, which was a critique of the Batman Arkham games. So, like, in this game, it's much more noticeable, where they take way longer to, like, wind up their punch. And, like, sometimes they're just not even looking at you. They're, like, running away sometimes. Again, AI programming. Again, talking about my ass. I don't know what I'm talking about game design. But AI design seems to be very difficult. Like, every single video game, and the way that I know that is every single video game I've played, whether it be the best video game ever or the worst video game ever, has glitches or random little things with the AI or that, like, doesn't work super well. Like, I don't care how polished a game is, you're going to have an experience where, like, an enemy is, like, facing a wall and not looking at you, or, like, whatever, that sort of thing. But I would say that overall, the enemies and the AI haven't blown me away. It looks mediocre, and that's why it belongs in the mediocre category. Okay, let's go to something that is great. The BatBike. The BatBike seems really, really fun to drive. I actually love the idea of using the BatBike over the Batmobile. I love that we got the Batmobile in Arkham Knight. What I like about the BatBike is it's a bit more agile, faster, more traversal, and then obviously we do avoid the whole issue with the Bat tank scenario and that sort of thing. So the fact that it's purely in this game like a pursuit device and a traversal device, and by traversal I mean like literally getting from point A to point B, I like that. The driving looks tight. It looks good. It seems fun. I think that what's most disappointing is that the BatBike lends itself to a map that is highly populated with civilians. That was one of the big problems with Arkham Knight from a design perspective, is you have this giant fucking bat tank running around. Of course you can't have civilians, because feasibly Batman could massacre hundreds of people Mad Max Fury Road style driving through the streets of Gotham. It just wouldn't work. So of course what they had to do is just make every car an enemy car. It's just like, oh, if that's a car, it's like, it's a bad guy. It's like, okay. Now we have the BatBike, but there's no civilians. Again, don't look at the 2020 CGI trailer that they unveiled at like E3 or whatever it was. Don't look at that. Look at the actual free roam gameplay that they're releasing. There's like one car every 15 seconds. So like this would have been perfect for a highly densely populated Gotham. Take a look at what we got in the Batman, the opening 5 minutes of the Batman. Like something like that would have been so cool to be driving through like a Times Square packed with hundreds, if not thousands of people. It's perfect for the BatBike. and pretty damn disappointing that, again, going back to the no civilians thing, which is I put in the ugly category. But the BatBike itself looks really fun to drive around. The Traversal looks fun overall. The BatBike on ground Traversal, not talking about the other type of Traversal, not talking about the BatBike, which I'll talk about now, which is the flying Traversal, which I will put in the mediocre category. I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer on this part. It's just weird is the best way I can describe it. So it's like Red Hood moves and travels by like randomly humping the air. That's really the best way I can describe it, is he's like humping the air and just like thrusting his hips forward, and he's like jumping. Why is he doing this? 'Cause Lazarus Pit, I guess. 'Cause reasons, I don't know. That's weird. Nightwing has a kite. Like, what? A kite? Come on. That's kind of weird. It's not the worst. Okay, maybe, you know what? I haven't played it. Okay, maybe the Traversal is the most fun thing ever, but Red Hood's Traversal is absurd. I mean, it's just absurd. There's no way you can convince me that it's cool. The kite, okay, maybe the kite's kind of cool. It has a motor on it, okay? It's like a paraglider. Let's not sell it short. It's a paraglider. Okay, which is cooler than a kite, but still a little weird. It's like what is this, like the Wright brothers? Like, what is this, 1909? Why do we have this like contraption flying around? And then Robin teleports? What? He just teleports? Oh, okay. So look, I'm going to be a Batgirl main, so I guess it doesn't matter. But the Traversal for Red Hood and Robin in particular just seems so whack that, again, this might just be me looking at the trailers and I'm like, hey, this is kind of whack. And maybe it's going to be fun in the game. I don't know, but this is a weird design choice, I guess. Okay, last thing that I want to talk about is Detective. I would say this just falls in the mediocre category just because, again, nothing blew me away with it. Haven't seen anything that looks incredible. Looks very similar to the Arkham games. Not better, not worse. Just looks average. So I would say Detective falls in that category. All in all, guys, again, obviously, I went through things that I think look great. I went through things that I look mediocre. I went through things that I'm concerned about. Really, 3 things that I put in the ugly category, but everything else looks either fine or good. Obviously, I have nitpicks because I'm a passionate fan. But what I will say is that I think this game is going to be a lot of fun to play. And I can't wait to play through the story. That's why I put the story in the good category. Is out of everything with this game, I'm actually less concerned about the gameplay than most people. I've seen a lot of people really down on the Red Hood gameplay. I want to play through the narrative story. I want to play through the story of this game. I want to play through the Court of Owls stuff. I want to see if it is indeed true that Batman or Bruce Wayne has any involvement. I want to see how the Bat family interacts. I want to see the cutscenes. I want to see I want to see Gotham Knights the movie. And I want to play with Salvo, Jake. That's what I want to do on October 25th. So I'm really excited, guys. Obviously, I just wanted to put everything on the table and be totally upfront and honest about my opinions. No hold bar. Not going to cut out any of this. These are my honest, unfiltered truth or opinions. And if you disagree with me, which inevitably you did, I went through 20 different things. Please put that in the comments. That's what makes these videos fun, is having a lively discussion amongst fans. I will not get offended by anything that you say, even if you call me an idiot or whatever. If you just say you're an idiot, then I won't get offended. I'll just be like, okay, that's not relevant to read. I'm not going to delete it. I'm just like not going to take any stake in it. But if you say you're an idiot for XYZ, like if you have a genuine disagreement, that's the reason that I like to do these videos, is because I want to, I think this video is going to get a lot of comments, and I want to be able to go through and see what everybody else is saying. Do you agree with everything that I said? Do you agree with none of it? I want to know, and feel free to disagree with me. Don't hold back. Don't feel the need to agree with me more than you do. If you disagree with anything that I said, please let me know. And that's what makes these videos fun, and that's what makes the discussion fun. So, guys, I've been going on for 45 minutes. I haven't done a commentary since April, so sorry if I was out of practice or whatnot, but I'm really, really excited for the game. Congratulations to WB Games Montreal for going gold. Incredible achievement. Obviously, so much blood, sweat, and tears were put into the game, obviously, by hundreds, if not thousands of people. I don't even know how many people they have now. At least hundreds. Just an incredible accomplishment, and I can't wait to get my hands on it. And more than anything else, everything that I went through today in this video is what we have seen from short little 1-minute gameplay trailers, short little 1-minute cutscenes. I've got a strong feeling that WB Games Montreal has some surprises up their sleeve, particularly, again, as it pertains to the story, which is what I'm most excited to play through and why I put it in the good category. And a lot of the other things that I went through or might be down on, like the civilians, for instance. Hey, if this story blows me away, I'm not going to be complaining about the civilians very much. I want to play great. I want to play a great Bat Family game, and I hope that we get that in October. So, if nothing else, really, really appreciate you guys all watching this video, and I'm super excited to get my hands on Gotham Knights on October 24th at midnight. Look forward to playing with you guys on live stream. Another great thing that I wanted to announce is I will be live streaming the Batman Arkham games and the Road to Gotham Knights live. Also, myself and Salvage and Arkham Channel and Irogen and many other people are going to be doing the podcast with a myriad of other guests and hosts. I had done a video with K-Wing, or I was going to shoot a video with K-Wing, had a bunch of technical issues. The last PSA I wanted to get out is if you know a producer in Nashville, anyone that's experienced with audio design, Streamlabs, editing, shooting video, I could really use some help in those areas just because I am strapped for time. I want to be creating more content, and having a producer would be immensely helpful. I'll give you, a sizable chunk of the revenue from this channel. More than happy to do that. Maybe not sizable, but I'll pay you. I will make sure you get paid. Like, it's not like just volunteering or anything like that. Of whatever revenue comes in the channel, obviously in the next couple of months. And I do think that a lot of people are going to express a lot of interest in this game. A lot of people are down on it, but I think a lot of YouTubers are going to be jumping on the Gotham Knights train. I think this game is going to be selling like hotcakes. If nothing else, honestly, if you're not even a Batman fan, the gameplay just looks fun for many people. And so excited to get my hands on the game in late October. Thank you guys so much for watching. Really appreciate those of you that listened the whole way through. Be sure to like the video and leave your comments and thoughts down below. See you guys in the next one. Peace out.